So from the boutique that I had a whole network of boutique owners that were constantly coming to me at the firm, but they couldn't afford the firm rates. And finally, the firm said, hey, we don't want these small businesses. They're not quality clients. I knew that was not true because I saw this consistent stream of people asking for help. They just couldn't afford their rates. And so I posted in these Facebook groups that I was in for boutique owners. And immediately I was like, hey, I'm officially out on my own. Because I had been telling them like, hey, I'm going to start my own firm. And I was just making shit up as I went. Honestly, I was like making up prices. And the last month at the firm, I was basically teaching myself how to do trademarks. So finally, I'm out on my own. And I remember that first night, a lot of people they wanted more information. But one girl was like, hey, I want you to help me with this, I'll pay you. But she 100% was my first client.
Welcome to the Legalpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Sager, founder and CEO of Legalpreneur, Inc. As a serial entrepreneur and someone that works exclusively with small business owners legally protecting their business, I'm dedicated to covering common legal issues faced by business owners, providing you with the business knowledge you need to catapult your business's growth and showing you just how some of the world's most elite entrepreneurs have handled these legal and business issues themselves. In true attorney fashion, the information in this episode is not legal advice. This is for informational purposes only, and you should always consult with your attorney before implementing any of the information in the show.
Hello there, welcome back. Boy, do I have a surprise for you. But before we get into the surprise, I have to remind you about the Legalpreneur membership, all access to your very own attorney. What are you waiting for? Unlimited emails, a phone call every month, document review, contract templates, a discount on additional services, business audit, trademark search, like all the things. The link is in the show notes. Go sign up, get your own attorney, and let's get to it. Okay, so I'm super excited because I have a very special guest on the podcast today, and that is my everything, my right hand in business, my best friend in real life. I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about her. Y'all have probably emailed. If you came to Dream Bigger, you met her. None other than Miss Kayla Bandy, who is the Chief Operations Officer at Legalpreneur. She is here not this week, but also for next week. So this week, we are actually doing a fun little episode to have her interview me. And then next week, I am interviewing her. So make sure you do not miss either one of these episodes because I promise it's going to be juicy. I mean, Kayla knows everything there is to know about me. So this episode's going to be great. So Kayla, welcome to the show.
Hi, are you scared of what's coming?
Y'all,
you should be.
She made all these questions, and I'm so excited to hear her list of things that I say that annoy her.
Yeah, when you asked me to jump on the podcast, I was excited because when you listen to podcasts, especially like powerful women in business, they always have episodes with like their husbands, their significant others, and so on. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect because I am your significant other. Yes. So this is going to be fabulous.
Yes, you are. And just to give y'all some background, Kayla and I met in college. So for those that don't know, I went to college on a bowling scholarship in Pikeville, Kentucky at the University of Pikeville, which is the tiniest town in America. And I met Kayla there because she was a coach and because she had already graduated. She graduated in 2008. I started there in 2010 and we met and it was fate. It was fate. We slowly became best friends and she's probably a big part of the reason why me and my ex-husband even started dating. That's a whole episode in and of itself. Yeah. And she was my maid of honor. And she was like the first person that I called to be like, I think I'm ready for a divorce. Yeah. So Kayla, you're the interviewer here. So go ahead and take over.
Yes, that was perfect though, where you started. We're going to go back into time. So you had you were going to school. I was working at the university because I could compete professionally. And you were kind of like a mentee at that time. So really, I think when you meet a lot of student athletes throughout the process, but one of the biggest things that happened was you were competing in a mountain laurel festival. And
oh my God.
in this process, you have to have a date, number one, who is, got to be pretty well spoken, be prepared to talk to anybody and go through this process. Well, the last part of this competition, if you will, there's an interview process. Well, BT, your future husband, you didn't know it at the time. Yeah. Well, at that time, he was your future husband and you didn't know it. He's prepping you for this speech. You come into this interview and you nail it. And at that point, that's kind of what set you apart from the rest was this girl's got it going on. She's got a good sense of humor. We can cut loose in the office, but she's destined for great things. And it was very obvious at that moment. But throughout, let's say, okay, you're moving towards graduation, you apply for law school, which was kind of entertaining in itself. I remember the one question that you had was, it's asking me my, your race. And you're like, do I put that down? I'm like, yes, you put that down. Whatever your race is, that's what you put. But now in 2023, evaluating that, what did it feel like in that moment, bringing that topic up when you were just applying to law school?
Yeah, that was a huge thing because I actually didn't know if I was considered an underrepresented minority. And because in Houston, where I'm from, I'm the majority. I was not a minority. And then, of course, I go to Pikeville, Kentucky, and I'm one of 8 Hispanic students at the entire university. And so I was like, do I put that I am an underrepresented minority? And I remember that so vividly because I had no idea. I was like, well, here I am, but at home I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now looking back on it, that was a pretty powerful moment that we just kind of swept underneath the rug. It was nothing. But so you get accepted to law school for not just for a number of reasons, but law school is expensive and it's scary. So what do you remember the thought of this is going to be expensive. This is going to be scary. I'm going to school with these people who've gone to extremely reputable institutions and we're all coming together at this law school.
Yeah, so my ex-husband he was a big factor into where I went to school. But basically we decided together, I will go wherever I get the most scholarship money. And because at the time I was supposed to be going active duty. So I had got I commissioned ROTC through ROTC in the Army, and I was supposed to be an active duty officer, but they gave me an educational delay to go to law school. And the Army won't outright pay for your law school, but they will repay your student loans. And so the idea was, let me just max out all of my student loans and I'll have the most amount of money to live off of, and the Army will just pay back my loans. And so I went to NKU, Northern Kentucky University, for law school, and I ended up paying $5,000 a year. So it was almost a full ride, but not quite. And I maxed out my student loans every year to live off of, that way I didn't have to live that poor. But
right, yeah,
I ended up not going active duty, so now I'm stuck paying my student loans.
Yeah. So that's funny. That was also kind of how this relationship started too. I remember when you went away for a while to training or something,
God.
You would write letters. I've got to pull those out. I got those somewhere. But yeah, I think that at that time we really didn't, when you applied, we had no idea what was coming. But I think the moral of this story was we figured out in this moment, life lesson thing was it's going to be scary as hell and things are going to seem like they're way beyond their reach. But you made it happen. So when did the boutique come in this process?
So y'all, Kayla not only worked at the school, but she was also the residence director. And I was an RA, a resident assistant. I don't remember what the term is. So I got paid to be over one dorm. And I was the worst example because I'm always a mess.
Clothes everywhere. Can't even walk.
clothes everywhere. But I bring this up because my closet was full of Express. I always shopped at Express. And so when I graduated from college, I knew I was about to be poor because I wasn't making as much money because I made pretty good money in undergrad because of ROTC. I also had a job, like so many things. Well, leaving undergrad, going to law school, I knew I wasn't going to be making as much money. And so I started selling my clothes on Poshmark.
Ah, okay.
And that's really where it started. I just started selling everything, but then it just grew from there. I started flipping clothes from the thrift store because BT, my ex-husband, he loved going to thrift stores. And eventually I remember looking at clothes and thinking, hey, I wonder if I could buy this and sell it for a profit on Poshmark. And I did. And so then that became like my new thing. I would flip clothes. And then I saw a lot of people on Poshmark buying wholesale boutique clothing and reselling it on Poshmark. And so I said, hey, I want to do that, but I also want my own website. So that's when I started the boutique. I remember I officially started the boutique clothing summer of between my first and second year of law school. And I think it was also because I had a job between the two summers working at a law firm in West Virginia. And that was when I was like, ugh, I hate it here. And I thought it was just the firm. I didn't think it was like working. I think it's just the like law firm environment that I don't like. Yeah. But I thought it may have just been that law firm. And so I was like, okay, I got to do something else. And so I started my own clothing boutique on the side. And that's how that started.
Yeah, that was so how long did you keep the boutique for? And when did you decide to sell it?
2015 is when I started it. And then I sold it 2017, 2018.
Nice. So about that time you're graduating from law school, right?
Yep. Graduated and started at the big firm because, I thought I had my dream job working on the 38th floor in Cincinnati, watching a Cincinnati Reds game from my office. I was like, oh my God, I'm set for life. And I quickly realized, oh my God, this is awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
But BT was staying home. So we had Thomas my last semester of law school. And the plan was BT will stay home with Thomas when I start working. And that's what happened. And so when I start my job and I come home and I'm like, hey, babe, I'm miserable. He's like, well, you can't quit.
Right. I'm taking care of this kid. I'm doing your boutique stuff. We got a dog. I think you guys had a cat.
Yeah, we had a dog and a cat. Yeah. Oh, Teddy and Marco. I miss them so much.
Yeah, they were good dogs. I remember visiting that house, and when you guys had that house, you were still working. I think you brought up at the time, like, I think I might be quitting. That was probably one of the first moments I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We just had a kid and we're going to quit our job. Awesome. Yep. That's exactly how we scripted this.
Yeah.
So you leave the firm. You're still in Ohio. How long after did you decide to start your own? Obviously, when you left, you're starting your own firm, but you were still in Ohio. When did you move to Texas? I can't remember.
So what happened, we had actually put our house for sale on a Monday, and Wednesday, and I didn't have a job. At the time I was applying for jobs in Houston because BT didn't want me to start my own firm. He wanted a sure thing. He wanted the steady paycheck, which I understand. I get it.
Well, and at this moment you have quit this other job. So he's like,
I hadn't, I didn't. And so Wednesday, okay. So Monday we put the house for sale. Wednesday, I remember texting him and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to quit today. Like, I'm so miserable. I fucking hate this place. Like, I'm done. And he says, just wait till we have a contract on the house. And I was like, okay, you know what? I can do, like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can do that. And then Friday, my boss and the managing partner walk into my office and they give me two options. They say you can basically be on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, or you can take a severance package and go find another job. And I was like, bitch, give me my money.
I'm taking the severance package.
Yeah, I was never so excited in my entire life. And I think this was like one of the first moments where I was like, I don't know if I can stay in this marriage because I cannot explain how excited I was to get this severance. And I always tell people that I manifested getting fired because I'm like 5 minorities rolled into one. And I knew they had to offer me a severance. And so I'm so excited. Like I just got this $30,000 paycheck from this firm, which is more than enough to get us a new house in Houston. We can move to Houston, start my own firm, like all these things. And because I had told him that Wednesday, I was like, we have enough money saved and then, we can just move. And then we get this $30,000 windfall. And so I am so excited. And I go home and he's pissed. I mean, he is so, and like BT mad. Yeah. And I will never forget like how I didn't know what it meant at the time, but what I was experiencing was just not feeling seen and supported. Yeah. And that was like the first time that I was like, I don't know if I can stay in this marriage. Yeah. But anyways, I got fired on a Friday, launched my firm that night, and I had my first client.
So who is your first, like what did that feel like to have your first client who wants to actually, we talk about imposter syndrome a lot.
Yes.
But like in the workplace, even today. So what was that like to have the first client that says, I want to pay you for you to take care of this?
Yeah. So from the boutique that I had a whole network of boutique owners that were constantly coming to me at the firm, but they couldn't afford the firm rates. And finally the firm said, hey, we don't want these small businesses. They're not quality clients. I knew that was not true because I saw this consistent stream of people asking for help. They just couldn't afford their rates. And so I posted in these Facebook groups that I was in for boutique owners. And immediately I was like, hey, I'm officially out on my own. Because I had been telling them like, hey, I'm going to start my own firm. And I was just making shit up as I went. Honestly, I was like making up prices. And the last month at the firm, I was basically teaching myself how to do trademarks. And so finally I'm out on my own. And I remember that first night, a lot of people they wanted more information, but one girl was like, hey, I want you to help me with this, I'll pay you. I can't remember if she actually paid that night or if it was like the next day or the next week, but she 100% was my first client and I will never forget that.
That's fantastic. Yeah. We read a lot of Amanda Francis books that you put me on here, and like everything about your story is everything that she preaches, like that first person that pays, and then it's off to the races. Yep. So you got the clients coming in, you guys moved back to Houston. Yep. I'm doing my like twice a year visit down to see the Sagers. Andrea's working from home and I'm like, this is insane. She's working from home. Like this sounds like a dream job. Then I could compete all the time. But you seemed pretty busy. You had a lot going on. I remember one of the visits I came down, you were pregnant with Allie.
Yeah.
And you thought you had lost her.
Yeah, that was July 2018.
Yeah.
Because I remember, 2 weeks before I started at the big firm, we miscarried. And then you were there in July, which I don't think I've ever talked about this on a podcast. I just finished taking the Texas bar exam.
Yeah. I remember that story.
Listen, I remember I was having like stomach pains. And so I was like hurrying up trying to finish the exam. And the thing is, when you take a bar exam, there's literally hundreds or thousands of people in this one room. And you have to go home and upload the answers when you have Wi-Fi. I never turned in my fucking answers because I get home and I think I'm having another miscarriage.
And I was there, so you had somebody else there.
Yeah. Yes, so you were there, and that was like not a great weekend. But and then we didn't have insurance at the time because we just moved to Houston. He was starting to be a teacher, but his insurance hadn't kicked in yet, and so we spent a whole month thinking that we had miscarried. And so literally the day that the insurance kicked in, I went to the hospital and I was like, hey, I think I miscarried because I was this is TMI, but I was throwing up. I was still having symptoms. So of course I'm like trying to self-diagnose at home. And I was like, I just don't think the whole baby has passed. And so we went to the doctor. I was like, hey, I think I need to get a DNC. And they're like, well, there's a baby in there. So I was like, what? And that was a great day because literally we spent a whole month thinking we miscarried. Yeah. And at that point, that whole month, it was so depressing because I was like, I can't do this again. Like, I'm never getting pregnant again. Like, going through 2 miscarriages in a row, like, fuck this, never again.
All right.
And then we find out we're still pregnant. So then we're like, great, but I'm B negative, my blood type. And so then the doctors were like, well, shit, if you bled all this time, I forget what it's called, but basically when your blood is negative, it can attack the baby. And so then I spend like the whole freaking pregnancy freaking out, thinking that something's going to be wrong with the baby. So I was like, the doctor, my OB, Thomas, I had to have a C-section with Thomas. And so I had to have another one. And she was like, well, since you have to have a C-section, we can go ahead and tie your tubes if you want. And I was like, abso-freaking-lutely. I am never getting pregnant again. Like, physically, it messes up my body, but mentally, I cannot go through this again. So luckily, Allie came out chunky as hell, healthy as hell, sassy as hell.
I was going to say she's a fighter.
And they tied my tubes, and this girl ain't ever getting pregnant ever again.
That's funny. Yeah, she came out a fighter, that's for sure. All right, so Allie's here. Things are okay at home. Business is going really well. When do you decide, all right, I have enough money coming in that I've got to hire somebody, and plus I am completely overwhelmed?
You broke up there. Completely what?
Overwhelmed. So you're completely overwhelmed with like the amount of work coming in, but I got the funds where I need to hire somebody. And how did you decide who you're going to hire first? Like, what position?
Are we talking about Cassie here?
Yeah, that was your first hire, right?
Yes. Yep. So, and it's funny how I found Cassie too. So I remember posting towards the end of 2018, like, I need to hire somebody, but this is my very first hire. I have no idea exactly what I need. And so basically it's very vague. I'm like, I need help. I don't know exactly what I need. But from Poshmark, there was this girl, Nicole, if you're listening, I will always be grateful for you for sending me Cassie. And she's like, hey, my sister-in-law, she's getting her paralegal degree and she's finishing up and she can probably help. And at the time I was like, this is going to be a very part-time position, but hopefully it'll grow to full-time. And it was literally fate because Cassie was in her last semester of finishing her paralegal degree. And I think she was doing like a co-op. And so she started January of 2019. And I was like, girlfriend, I don't know exactly what I'm going to need, but I need somebody that can just figure it out, learn, grow with me, and increase in hours. And she's like, well, I think this will be perfect because she had her first daughter at the time. And so she wanted something remote and she wanted something just really part-time to, make a little bit of money while she's still finishing school. And it was literally perfect. And she's always been somebody that can just figure shit out. And we literally have just like grown together so much, Cassie and I. Yeah. And maybe I should interview her on the podcast. That'll be a good one. And now if Cassie is really the main one in my email. Yeah. These days, my email really stresses me out and overwhelms me. But Cassie can literally run the whole firm by herself. She's grown and just, she's incredible.
Yeah, I think that like listening to you talk about the first hire, especially with Cassie, it's very much like you've got to figure out one of the pain points as we've grown is the hiring process. And when you hired me, I mean, it's the same story.
You had no idea. We had no idea what you were going to do.
Yeah. So like that first successful hire that you have, like, I think that like those of you that are listening that are thinking about making your first hire or the next hire, I think you really got to lean into the reason why those hires worked. And it is, can you figure it out and do this on your own? Yep. So then you hired some attorneys along the way to help with the load with that. But when you got to the point to hire me, that's what we need to talk about. No, people. So best friends, were you scared to hire your best friend to work?
Yes. And I think can't remember. I think I did tell you, like, look, no matter what happens, like, I value our friendship more than anything else, because that's what scared me. I mean, I've seen it as the attorney for so many friends that have gone into business together. And so I was like, I need help, but I don't want this to ever get in the way of our friendship because I value this more than anything. And that was what I was mainly scared about, is just our friendship going sideways, which I think now, like, we really are just like life, besides you and Billy, we are pretty much life partners, and we get on each other's nerves all the time.
That's another episode.
But when it got to that point, so I hired you whenever I decided to launch Legalpreneur as the side hustle to the law firm. And we were launching the contract vault, and I wanted to really do a big push with affiliates for the contract vault. And I needed an affiliate manager, because at this point in the law firm, I think we had like 7-8 employees, and they were all maxed out. And I needed somebody else. And I was like, look, I think this is what we need, this affiliate manager. And I had paid Laura Sprinkle. She's like the affiliate queen about teaching and running affiliate programs. We did the VIP thing with her. So she really is the one that trained you and taught you.
Right.
And so we launched the contract vault. And at this time, you guys, so you'll hear more about Kayla's side of it next week, but she was coaching one of the top NCAA bowling programs in the country. But obviously, this was April, May, June of 2020.
Yep.
COVID had just hit, and she didn't have a job, or she was getting paid, but they weren't competing. Right. And I was like, well, I remember you called me. You were like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. And so you were kind of freaking out. And I was like, well, I need help. And that's how it started. And we launched the contract vault. And then I don't even remember when I started paying you, because at first it was like very part-time. And then at some point I was like, okay, let's just do this full-time. And slowly but surely, so she went from affiliate manager to just like operations manager. I don't remember how that shift was made.
I think that at that point you had a lot of contracted, like independent contractors working on different things. And, those contractors were for set amounts of time. And so when they were, ending contracts, it was time to take over the things that they had built for us. Yeah. So in the affiliate program, like, I didn't even know what a WordPress was at that point. I'm like, what do you mean a WordPress? Oh, okay. It's this elaborate thing that when I go to these websites, I can see the back end. But I think that the part-time work was great because we got to see if it was a good fit and if I could figure it out. And we could also like figure out the working relationship of the friendship.
Yeah.
But I think that part of the reason from my perspective that it worked, like you say that we had that conversation, but that conversation really wasn't had in those exact terms because we were just on a level where it was just kind of understood.
Yeah.
Like it was more valuable. So yeah, then we're bebopping along and we're doing great. Things are going awesome. And then one day you say, hey, I have this idea. Oh, here we go. And that's when you were like, okay, like we need to go all in on this Legalpreneur membership.
Well, before that, I thought you were going to say what the day that I called you and was like, hey, I think I'm going to get a divorce.
Oh, well, that was a visit when I came down. And you had been like talking about being.
Yeah, you came. I had told you that I wanted to divorce, and you were literally coming in the next week or 2 weeks later. And I was like, I'll wait to say something until after you leave, so it's not awkward. But then it literally just ended up coming out like the next day or so, and then it was awkward when Kayla was in town.
Yeah, it was a terrible visit. Oh my God. Talk about, you need a whole TikTok channel about that time of our life. But like, I came down and it was the most awkward time ever because I valued my friendship with BT too, because BT was, hilarious.
Funny, intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard for me because like I really wasn't in the middle because obviously like we were best friends, whatever, but it was a really hard time because I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. Like, okay, obviously, yes, you need to get out of this relationship. It is not healthy for either of you, but this sucks because he's also, you know, a good friend of mine too. I don't know if BT listens to your episodes, but hopefully he does and he hears that because I felt like it was just a bad time. Like it was just, anyway. So yes, you get a divorce. Well, I come down and I'm like, holy shit, this is real. Like she's not joking around. This is over.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when it was kind of like took the business to another level though, because you had to make it work. You're a single mama now.
Mm-hmm. And then
So,
literally a year later is when I was like, hey, I think it's time to go all in with Legalpreneur.
Yeah, exactly. And it was scary as hell. It's still scary
it's
as
still
hell.
Scary as hell.
Yeah. So yes, but it was right because we have clients all over the country, different countries, even coming into the membership. We've got all these attorneys coming to us that are like, I think we launched the Legalpreneur admitting a little failure here, thinking that attorneys came out of law school just like you.
Yeah.
And they don't.
They do not. And for those listening, I don't know if I've said this on the show, but if there's one thing that I struggle with, it is imposter syndrome with attorneys. I struggle with that every single day. And Kayla's like, what the hell are you talking about? Da, da, da. Because I still feel like I'm a baby lawyer and I feel like attorneys aren't going to want to learn from me. But time and time again, that's been proven to not be true because attorneys reach out to me all the time. They're like, hey, can you coach me? Can you mentor me? And so launching these products to attorneys, or I was afraid to do more because I thought, honestly, I think I just thought they would make fun of me for trying to teach them because I think inside I feel like I don't have anything to teach attorneys. But I think within the last really 3 to 6 months, I truly have come to realize like, hey, I do actually have a lot to teach and other attorneys can learn a lot from me. And so now that's really what I'm diving into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we recognize the need.
Yeah.
That we need to train them because our clients are incredibly valuable to us and they deserve the best. And so we found out that we got to train attorneys and here we go. So yeah, we got clients coming in from all over. We have attorneys and that feels really, really good that we're launching the Legalpreneur attorney course soon. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yeah, that's coming really in the next, I don't know, probably. Andrea brings me these ideas and she's like, hey, I have this idea. So how long will that take to build? Okay, yeah, I can't do it overnight, but
and then by the time we're done, I'm like, hey, I have another idea.
Right. This is for a next. This is going to transition nicely into things you say, but yeah, let's just transition. So things Andrea says. Here, I'll get the morning call. Popcorn. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so just so y'all know, like Kayla and I, so because we work so closely together and because we are real life best friends, we talk to each other, we call each other no less than 10 times a day. And that's not an exaggeration. Normally I'll take the kids to school and then on the way home I'll call her and we'll get caught up on, hey, what are we doing today?
Oh, yes. But we'll talk about that more when we talk about yes, we communicate a lot, but I also think that that's what makes it so successful. The operations, the COO, if we're being fancy that I'm called, what makes it so successful is that you're basically in a relationship with that person. Like you better be real comfortable. So, but that's for another episode. So, okay. Things you say. There's one thing I want to get done. Oh yeah. Well, I got a list of 25 things to do. Where would you like for me to put it on the list?
And I told her that, I remember, the deck, the investor deck. I think that was the last thing. I was like, hey, there's one thing I want done today.
Yeah. And then 2 hours later, she'll call and say,
Hey, there's
oh,
one
about this other massive project.
thing.
All right. You ready for number 2? So I worked all night. Oh, great. She worked all night, which means that let me get my pencil and paper out. Because that means that she's worked on another massive project to add to the list. I feel like we need music here for oh, okay. Here's a good one. So when she says, hey, can you create an email to send out about this topic? So I'm like typing what she says. So then I'm like, okay, cool. I'll make it better. So I type it up and I send to her. Never fails. It's too wordy. What do you mean it's too wordy?
Oh my God. I do that. Yeah.
But that's a good entrepreneur lesson, right? It's too wordy, because I feel like we've been successful because less is more.
Yeah. That's a good lesson just overall to those listening. If you're like, I don't know what I'm getting out of this episode, don't be too wordy.
Yes, exactly. So, and then the other kind of comical one I wrote down was, I am hilarious.
I am hilarious. Oh, you want to talk about the text that I sent this morning?
That is, I think the podcast is not rated on that level. No, I'm just kidding.
It is not rated on that level. Y'all cannot know the text that I sent. But I think it's really hilarious and I thought, and I'm sure this is just the business list of things. I know it's just because personal life things, Kayla, I'm sure it has like a whole long list of things.
Yes.
But I know one thing that Kayla is really happy about personal life wise for me is that I am no longer like stuck on a certain person.
Yeah. The dating life, the single entrepreneur things you've learned.
A lot. A lot.
Yes. Anyway, so yeah, I hope that your listeners took from this, number 1, the history of Legalpreneur and how we got here today. But number 2, the main thing I've learned from working with you is messy action.
Yeah.
Figure it out. It'll all come together. Yes. But yeah, that's all the questions I have as far as like where we're at. Yeah.
All right. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode. And we actually were thinking like, man, if we enjoy these episodes, we need to see if the audience enjoys these 2 episodes of us, because maybe we'll do this every once in a while, like Andrea and Kayla episode. So please drop us some feedback if you liked it.
Is your friendship like this? Like, are we normal? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Do you call your best friend 10 times a day? Oh my gosh. Anyways, I hope you like this. I realized I had never been interviewed on the podcast. And so I was like, hey, do you want to interview me? And then I'll interview you. So that's what this week is. Next week, you'll hear from Kayla and let us know. And we'll see ya. Hopefully we get to work with you in Legalpreneur.
Thanks for having me.
Here at Legalpreneur, we're committed to providing a supportive legal community for all business owners. I know how scary the legal stuff can be. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could share it with a fellow business owner. And quite frankly, it doesn't cost anything to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. Your support helps me reach more listeners, which allows me to support more business owners in their entrepreneurial journey. Have any questions or comments about the show? Feel free to drop me a line on Instagram. I promise I read all of the messages and comments. And if you want to be a guest on the show or know someone that would make a great guest, simply fill out our application form and a team member will reach out if we think it's a good fit. I'll see you in the next episode.